You know those raw moments when everything unravels? Your faith, your life, even God Himself staring back at you? Man, I've been there. Deeper in the pit than most folks could imagine. My name's Jake, from a dusty speck of a town in Kansas, where wheat fields roll forever and faith's as common as pickup trucks. I grew up in a beat-up mobile home that rattled with every prairie gust. Mom slung hash browns at the diner, pulling doubles to keep the lights on. Dad, locked up since I was knee-high, stealing to pay bills that never got paid, no silver spoon, just a kid drowning in "why me?" questions echoing louder than the storms. I'm not proud of this, still twists my gut. But I mocked Jesus, straight up in Grandma's dusty attic, staring at her old wooden cross. I lost it, laughed right in its face, cold and bitter. "If you're so almighty," I snarled, "prove it, strike me down." Then, God forgive me, I spat on it. Saliva dripped down the carved wood, like some twisted baptism. Nothing happened, or so I thought. But if you felt that rage, the kind that makes you lash out at what you can't understand, I get it. I was you, angry at a God who seemed silent while my world crumbled. That spit was my war cry. But here's the twist that still chills me. That night, I died. Clinically dead for 7 minutes after a dumb overdose. And what He showed me? No clouds or harps. It was terror. A room roaring with flames that torched my soul, not my skin, shadows whispering my sins. Jesus stood there, eyes full of sorrow, not wrath. "Why did you mock me?" His voice boomed like thunder through my chest. Visions hit, my life unraveling, my pain rippling out like poison, hurting everyone. Hell was separation, eternal and empty. I snapped back gasping in the ER, clutching a splinter from Grandma's cross, warm, like it had been through fire. Coincidence? No way. If a mocker like me, spitting on the cross, laughing at the crucifixion, could be yanked back, imagine the mercy waiting for you. But my redemption started way before that ER. Let me take you back to the broken kid, scraping for something real in a fake world. I wasn't born a mocker. Life hammered me that way. But that pain, it was building to something I never saw coming. Stick around. This is just the start. Let me paint the picture for you, just like it was burned into my soul. I was born in '85, right in the heart of nowhere, Kansas. Think endless cornfields under a sky too big. That prairie wind howling like ghosts. My home? A rusty mobile home on the edge of Wichita, creaking with every gust, whispering secrets I couldn't decode as a kid. Mom slung burgers at the diner, working doubles, coming home reeking of grease, bone-tired, just to keep the heat on. It never warmed the emptiness. Dad, a shadow, locked up since I was 6 for boosting cars to scrape by. No bedtime stories, no family dinners with laughter, just me, a scrawny kid on a lumpy mattress, staring at a cracked ceiling, stomach growling louder than the storms. Have you ever had those nights? That quiet, gnawing hunger, not just for food, but for someone to say, "You're enough." That was my every damn day. Church was supposed to fill it. Grandma dragged me there Sundays, her shaky voice singing about a God who loves, who provides. But where was He when we ate cold ramen for weeks? When Mom's eyes were red from crying, not praying? I started small. Sins, they'd call them, skipping church, lying to Grandma about where I was, wandering fields alone. I can still smell that lavender from her old Bible, read to me before bed, its pages yellowed like my fading hope. She'd tuck it under my pillow, saying, "Jake, he's listening." But I heard silence. One night, at 6, I knelt by my bed, hands clasped, and whispered, "God, if you're real, bring Dad home, please." Nothing. No knock, no miracle. That silence cracked something in me, a fissure that'd grow wider every year. But that emptiness, that unanswered prayer, it wasn't just a crack. It pushed me toward choices I'd regret. Choices that started small but snowballed into something way darker, leading to a war I never meant to wage, By 12, I was done with church, done with the whole idea of a God who cared. I'd sneak out, ditch Grandma's Sunday sermons, and hang with the rough kids behind the school bleachers, passing around stolen smokes like we were kings of nowhere. Those cigarettes, that first drag at 14, burned my throat but numbed the ache inside, the one that started when Dad never came home. It felt like freedom, like I was calling the shots in a life that kept screwing me over. But truth? It was just escape, chasing anything to drown out the quiet that screamed louder than the Kansas wind. Church wasn't the answer. Felt like a scam. Grandma dragged me to those pews, her voice warbling through hymns about a loving God. But I saw the pastor dodge the poor kid in the back row, me, like I was invisible. I'd stare at Mom's old Bible on the shelf, Psalm 23 staring back. The Lord is my shepherd. Shepherd felt like a lost sheep with no one looking. I slammed that book shut, laughing to cover the sting, but it hurt, like a betrayal I couldn't name. Ever feel like you're shouting into a void, hoping someone hears? I did. And when no one answered, I pushed harder, leaned into the anger. That's when the stupid stuff started. I trolled a pastor once, local guy, all smiles and sermons. Walked into his office, faked a sob story about wanting to find Jesus, got him hopeful, then bolted, laughing my ass off as I ditched him. "Your God's a joke," I'd mutter, feeling like I'd won something. I can still see the scar on my knuckles from punching a wall that night, tiny, cross-shaped from a rusty nail that caught my skin. Ignored it then, but it burned like a warning I didn't heed. I was spiraling, chasing highs that crashed harder each time. Weed came next, sneaking into parties, losing myself in cheap booze and girls who didn't stay. I'd lie there after, staring at the ceiling, same as when I was 6, dreaming of a hot meal with people who gave a damn. One night, high as a kite, I typed into some online forum, "God is dead," hit send and laughed alone in my room, feeling powerful for 10 seconds before the emptiness crashed back. If you've ever done something dumb just to feel seen, you get why I kept going. I wasn't proud, still ain't, but it was like daring the world to notice me. Those small sins, those little acts of defiance, they weren't just rebellion, they were kindling, piling up, ready to ignite into something way darker than I ever planned. And man, that fire was coming. I was barely holding it together by the time high school ended. The world felt like it was closing in, and I was just a kid from a nowhere Kansas town, trying to outrun the emptiness that had been chasing me since I was 6. I lost my job at the gas station, fired for showing up high one too many times. My girlfriend, the one person I thought saw me, bailed when she caught me raging at nothing, screaming at walls like they'd answer back. I was 20, drowning in cheap liquor and pills, anything to numb the ache that never left. That hunger wasn't just for food anymore. It was for something, anything, to make me feel whole. But all I found was a deeper hole, one I dug myself. I turned full-on atheist, diving headfirst into online forums where people like me tore down faith like it was a game. I'd post, "Jesus is a myth and God's dead," grinning at the screen as the likes rolled in. It felt like power, like I was finally the one in control. But deep down, I was still that kid in the mobile home, staring at a cracked ceiling, dreaming of a family dinner, a warm hug, something real to hold on to. I'd push those thoughts away, bury them under another shot, another hit, another post. You ever try to outrun your own heart? That's what I was doing, and I was losing bad. The anger wasn't just at God, it was at everything. Mom working herself to death, Dad rotting in a cell, the church that preached love but ignored me. I blamed God for all of it, like he was the one who broke my world. I'd sit alone, scrolling through those forums, typing out rants that got nastier each time. "If God's so great, why's my life a wreck?" I'd write, laughing to myself in the dark. But the laugh was hollow, like it was mocking me right back. I remember one night, after a fight with Mom, I punched a wall so hard it left a scar on my knuckle, same cross-shaped mark from years before, like it was haunting me. I ignored it, like I ignored everything that tried to pull me back. If you've ever felt so lost, you lashed out just to feel something. You know what I mean. I wasn't proud of it. Hell, I'm still not. But it was like I was screaming at the universe to notice me. I'd dream of simple things, a hot meal with people who cared, a night without that gnawing void. But instead, I leaned into the chaos, joined a group of drifters who hated religion as much as I did. We'd meet up, talk big about breaking free from faith, swapping stories of how we'd trolled churches or mocked believers online. I'd tell them about the pastor I'd pranked, how I'd laughed in his face, and they'd cheer me on. But every time I walked away, the high faded, and I was left with nothing but that same old emptiness. One night, I went too far. Posted a video on some sketchy site, me burning a page from Grandma's Bible, laughing like a maniac as the flames ate the words. "This is for you, God," I sneered, holding it up to the camera. The comments exploded, some cheering, some cursing me out. I didn't care. It felt like I was finally winning, like I'd exposed some big lie. But when I shut off the phone, I was alone again. The smell of burnt paper lingering in my room like a ghost. I kept a piece of that page, charred, crumbling, tucked in my wallet next to that cross splinter. Don't know why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe defiance. But it sat there, heavy, like it knew something I didn't. Those moments, those little acts of rage, they weren't just me being a punk. They were me building a wall between myself and everything good I'd ever wanted. I thought mocking God would set me free, would fill that hole inside, but it didn't. It just dug it deeper, piling up the kindling for a fire I couldn't control. And that fire, it was about to burn everything down, leading me straight to a clash I never saw coming. This part of my story, it's tough to relive. Even now, I don't say it proudly, hell. My voice still catches when I think about it. But you deserve the full truth. No sugarcoating. By my mid-20s, that doubt I'd been carrying since childhood had turned into all-out war. It wasn't just questioning God anymore. It was me declaring battle on everything he stood for. Started small, like most bad ideas do, with pranks that felt harmless at the time. I'd slide into pastors' DMs on social media, firing off insults wrapped in fake questions. "Hey, Reverend, explain why your God's so silent," I'd type, then vanish like smoke when they tried to respond, or I'd pose as some lost soul seeking guidance, get them all invested, then ghost them with a parting shot. "Your faith is a fraud." It felt like I was exposing some big lie, like I was the hero uncovering the scam. But why? Deep down, it was those childhood wounds driving me. The absent dad rotting in prison, the lonely nights in that rattling mobile home, Mom's exhausted face when she came home from the diner. All that pain made me want to prove God didn't care, that he was just another absent figure in my life. Ever mock something to hide your own fear? I did it all the time back then. It was my shield, my way of saying, "You can't hurt me if I hurt you first." Take Halloween one year. I dressed up as zombie Jesus, staggering through a house party in Wichita, yelling out mocked lines from the crucifixion like it was comedy gold. "Why have you forsaken me?" I'd groan, arms outstretched, fake blood dripping down my face. The crowd laughed, slapping me on the back, calling it epic. And yeah, I laughed too, loud and fake, to drown out the hollow echo inside. But when the party's buzz faded and I was alone in my truck, staring at the dashboard, that laughter turned to nothing. Just emptiness, same as always. I was proving a point, or so I thought, to myself, to the world, to a God I claimed didn't exist. But really? I was just a scared kid in a man's body, lashing out because life had beaten me down too many times. That night, after the party, I went too far. Alone in my room, the beer still buzzing in my veins, I pulled out Grandma's old crucifix, the one she'd given me as a kid. Simple wood carved with care. It symbolized everything I hated, the faith that hadn't saved my family, the God who hadn't answered my prayers. I held it up, staring at it under the dim lamp, and something snapped. I becong it, twisting the arms like I was breaking my own broken faith. The wood creaked, splintering a bit, and I felt a rush, like power, like control. But it was fleeting, gone as quick as it came, leaving me with that same void staring back. I kept a bent piece of it in my wallet after that, sharp edge pricking my finger every time I reached for cash. Like guilt I couldn't shake, a constant reminder poking at me. Didn't throw it away, though. Maybe part of me knew I was crossing lines I couldn't uncross. Those pranks, that mockery, they escalated fast, turning from words into actions that destroyed more than just symbols. And man, they were building to something far more destructive, a clash that would nearly end me. But let's not jump ahead. You see, this wasn't random rage. It was years of built-up hurt, the absent hugs, the cold dinners alone, the prayers that echoed back silent. I was trying to fill that hole with defiance, thinking it'd make me strong. Spoiler, it didn't. It just made the fall harder when it came. If you're listening and feeling that same pull, the urge to push away what's good because life's been cruel, I get it. I was you. But hang on, the story's about to turn darker before the light breaks through. Things got uglier fast, and I'm not proud of it. Reliving this feels like dragging a blade across old scars. But you gotta hear the raw truth to understand how deep I fell. By this point, my war against faith wasn't just words or pranks. It was a full-on assault, fueled by years of pain I couldn't outrun. Those childhood nights, hungry, alone in that creaky Kansas mobile home, praying for Dad to come back, had twisted into something dark. I wasn't just angry at God. I was out to destroy anything tied to Him. Like burning it all down would somehow fix the hole in my chest. I started hanging with a crew of drifters who hated religion as much as I did. We'd meet at bonfires out in the sticks, chanting freedom like it was some kind of battle cry, tossing old Bibles into the flames and watching the pages curl to ash. The firelight danced on our faces, and for a moment, I'd feel alive, powerful, untouchable. But you want real? It was a cry for attention, a desperate scream to a world that never seemed to hear me. You ever destroy something just to feel in control? I was neck deep in that trap. One night, we took a road trip to Vegas, more booze than sense in our veins. On the way, we stopped at this rundown roadside chapel, peeling paint, cracked windows, the kind of place that looked forgotten by God Himself, drunk and raging. I stormed inside, my buddies egging me on. The air was stale, heavy with dust and silence, but I didn't care. I zeroed in on the altar cross, simple, wooden, like Grandma's, but bigger. I grabbed it, yelling, "Jesus, you're a liar!" and smashed it against the floor. Shards flew like my shattered life, splintering across the warped boards. My crew cheered, whooping like we'd won some war, but one guy, quieter than the rest, muttered, "Man, that's too far." I brushed it off. "God's dead!" I spat, stomping a piece of the cross into the dust, feeling a rush, like I'd finally broken free. But free from what? The high faded as we piled back into the van, and I was left with that same gnawing void, heavier than ever. I kept a splinter from that cross, jagged and smelling of old chapel wood, tucked it in my wallet next to the bent piece from Grandma's crucifix. Don't ask me why. Maybe defiance, maybe guilt, but it sat there like a weight I couldn't shake. That night, I went further. Back at the motel, I stood in the parking lot, lit a cigarette, and symbolic-like, spat into the shadow of a cross cast by the neon sign above. My buddies laughed, filming it, posting it online with captions like, "No gods, no masters." The comments blew up, some cheering, some cursing me to hell. I soaked it up, grinning like I'd won. But alone later, staring at the ceiling, the smell of smoke and motel mildew clinging to me, I felt nothing. No victory, no freedom, just a kid who'd lost his way. Pretending he hadn't, thinking back, I wasn't proving a damn thing, just breaking myself more. If you've ever torn something apart because life tore you first, you know that pull. I was chasing control, but all I got was chaos. Those bonfires, that smashed cross, that spit in the shadows. It wasn't about God. It It was about me, a broken boy trying to scream loud enough for someone to notice. But nobody did. Not my crew, not the internet strangers, not even me. I was too blind to see the real cost piling up. That chapel moment was the peak of my defiance, but it wasn't the end. The karma was coming, and it hit like a freight train. Those acts, those shards of wood, they weren't just symbols, they were pieces of me, scattered and lost. And that fire I thought I controlled, it was about to burn me alive, leading to a clash that'd nearly end everything. I'd gone so far there was no turning back, or so I thought. That night in the chapel, smashing that altar cross, it felt like I'd won something, like I'd finally stuck it to a God who'd ignored me my whole life. My crew's cheers echoed in my ears as I stumbled out, drunk on whiskey and defiance, the splintered wood smell of old chapel dust clinging to my hands. But victory? That was a lie I told myself. By 25, I was a wreck, jobless, strung out, living in a haze of pills and cheap liquor, chasing a high to drown the same emptiness I'd felt since I was a kid in that Kansas mobile home. That night wasn't the end. It was the spark that lit the fuse to my downfall. I was spiraling, and the crash was coming fast. Back at the motel, the high wore off, and reality hit like a punch. My life was a mess. No family dinners, no warm hugs, just me and my demons in a room that reeked of stale beer and regret. I popped more pills, chasing that numb feeling, but it wasn't enough. My heart started racing, pounding like it was trying to break free. I collapsed on the grimy carpet, vision blurring, the world fading to black. I'd overdosed, heart stopped, clinically dead for 7 minutes. They'd tell me later. I thought I'd beaten God, proved he wasn't there. But in that moment, as my body gave out, I realized I hadn't won anything. I'd just opened the door to something terrifying, something I wasn't ready for. You ever feel like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, daring the universe to push you? That was me, except I didn't wait for the push. I jumped. That chapel stunt, the smashed cross, the spit in the shadows. It wasn't just rebellion. It was me screaming at a God I swore I didn't believe in, begging him to prove me wrong, and he was about to. Not with lightning or wrath, but with something far worse. The truth. I thought mocking would fill the void. Those years of no dad, no warmth, just cold ramen and mom's tired eyes. But it didn't. It just dug the hole deeper, and I was about to fall right into it. The last thing I remember before blacking out was the weight of that splinter in my wallet, jagged, heavy with the scent of chapel wood, like it was trying to tell me something. I ignored it, like I ignored every warning. My buddies didn't notice me slipping away. They were too busy laughing, filming their next stunt. The comments online were still pouring in from that video of me spitting at the cross's shadow, some calling me a legend, others damning me to hell. I didn't care. I was done caring, but alone in that motel, as my heart stuttered, I wasn't laughing anymore. The room spun, and I hit the floor, thinking, this is it, I won. But God, he was waiting on the other side, and what he showed me wasn't victory. It was terror. If you're listening and feeling angry right now, I get it. Share this to warn someone, call me out, whatever. But hold on, because this story is about to twist in ways I never saw coming. That overdose wasn't the end. It was the nail in my coffin. The moment everything changed. I thought I was free, breaking crosses and burning pages to prove a point. But all I'd done was break myself, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to hold on to. That splinter, that charred Bible page in my wallet, they weren't trophies. They were reminders of a war I was losing, a war I'd waged against a God who never fought back. And in that darkness, as my heart stopped, the real clash began. Not with God, but with the truth I'd been running from my whole life. Everything went black, not the kind of dark you get from shutting your eyes, but a heavy, suffocating blackness that felt alive, like it was swallowing me whole. My body was gone, heart stopped, flatlined, they'd tell me later, but my mind, it was trapped, awake in a void where the air burned without flames. I'd mocked Jesus, smashed crosses, spat on everything holy, thinking I'd won some war against a God I swore wasn't there. But in that moment, as I floated in this endless nothing, I felt it, regret, hot and searing, like a fire torching my soul from the inside. It wasn't my skin burning, it was every choice I'd ever made, every cruel word, every laugh at Grandma's faith, playing back like a twisted tape. The shadows moved, alive, hissing my sins back at me. Every God's a joke, every Jesus is a myth, I'd typed into those forums, echoing in a chorus that made my chest ache with shame. You think this sounds crazy? I did too, standing in that motel room hours before, high out of my mind, thinking I was untouchable. I'd have laughed if you told me I'd end up here, in this place where time didn't exist, where the weight of my life crushed me. But it was real, too real. The air pulsed with heat, not the kind that blisters skin, but the kind that makes you feel every wrong you've ever done. I heard whispers, faint at first, like wind through the Kansas plains, but they grew sharper, clearer. It was Mom's voice, crying, the same sobs I'd heard as a kid when she thought I was asleep. "Jake, come back," she'd prayed, kneeling by her bed, clutching that lavender-scented Bible. I hadn't listened then, but now her voice cut through the dark, a knife of guilt slicing deeper than any pill ever could. I tried to scream, but no sound came, just silence, heavier than the void. That's when I felt it, a presence, not angry, not vengeful, but heavy with sorrow. I couldn't see him yet, but I knew. It was like the air shifted, like the whole place was holding its breath. I'd spent years mocking, spitting, breaking anything tied to him, but here, in this abyss, I was small, exposed, a kid again, scared and alone. You ever feel like you've pushed so far there's no way back? That was me, drowning in my own defiance, realizing too late I'd been fighting the wrong enemy, not God, myself. The heat grew, not hotter but deeper, like it was peeling back layers of me I'd buried. I saw flashes, my childhood, the mobile home, Mom's tired eyes, Dad's empty chair at a table we never used. I saw the pastor I'd trolled, his face falling when I ghosted him. I saw Grandma's cross, the one I'd spat on, its wood splintered in my wallet, now warm against my skin, even in this nowhere place. That splinter, it was real, a piece of my past I couldn't burn away, smelling of chapel dust and guilt. It was like God was saying, "You can't outrun me," not with wrath, but with a patience that hurt worse than any punishment. This wasn't hell like in the movies, no devils with pitchforks, no lakes of fire. It was worse, separation, a void where everything good, love, warmth, family, was gone, and I'd built it myself. Every mock, every smashed cross, every God's dead post had been another brick in that wall, cutting me off from the light I didn't even know I needed. If you're listening and doubting, I was you, thought this stuff was fairy tales for suckers. But in that blackness, I wasn't laughing anymore. The shadows kept whispering, and Mom's cries grew louder, mixing with my own voice, the one that had laughed at faith. And then, just when I thought I'd break, he appeared, the moment that changed everything, the nail in my story that drove it all home. The blackness didn't let up, but something shifted, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then he appeared, Jesus, right there in the void, his figure cutting through the pulsing heat like a blade of light. Not the glowing, haloed statue from Grandma's church, but real, raw. His eyes locked on mine. Those eyes weren't angry, not like I deserved. They were heavy with sorrow, like he was carrying the weight of every hurt I'd ever caused. "Why did you mock me, Jake?" His voice hit like thunder, not loud but deep, shaking my core, echoing through the emptiness. I couldn't look away, couldn't hide. My whole life, every sneer, every smashed cross, every time I'd spat on his name, was laid bare, reflected in those eyes. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Visions crashed over me like waves, each one sharper than the last. I saw the ripples of my actions, every cruel post I'd typed in those anti-faith forums, every "God's dead" I'd laughed off. They weren't just words, They hurt people. I saw the pastor I'd trolled, his shoulders slumping as he read my fake plea for help, believing he'd failed me. I saw Mom, crying alone in our mobile home, her lavender-scented Bible clutched tight, praying for a son who'd turned his back on her. Then the worst, Dad. Not in prison, but in chains, begging in some dark place, his voice breaking as he called my name. My mocks hadn't just hurt me. They'd spread like poison, wounding everyone I'd touched. You ever realize too late that your angers burned more than just you? That was me, seeing the wreckage I'd left behind, each vision a knife twisting deeper. The cross I'd smashed in that chapel flashed next, its shards flying in slow motion, but now they bled, red dripping where my spit had landed. I heard Mom's sobs again, louder, mixing with a cry from the broken cross itself, like it was alive, grieving. I fell to my knees, or whatever passed for knees in that place, my chest tight, shame choking me. That splinter from Grandma's crucifix, the one I'd kept in my wallet, burned warm against me, even here. It smelled of chapel wood and smoke, a piece of my defiance I couldn't escape. I'd thought I was free, breaking and burning to prove a point, but here, in his gaze, I was just a kid who'd lost his way, begging for something I didn't even know I needed. He spoke again, softer now, quoting words I'd heard but never listened to. I am the way, the truth, and the life, John 14:6. It wasn't preachy. It was like he was offering a rope to a drowning man. Me, I didn't deserve it, not after the things I'd done, spitting on his cross, laughing at his pain. But those eyes didn't condemn. They mourned, like he felt my hurt more than I did. If you're doubting right now, thinking this is just some fever dream, I was you. I'd have scoffed, called it a hallucination. But in that moment, I knew this was real. This was the truth I'd been running from since I was 6, praying for Dad in that cold mobile home. The heat didn't fade, but it changed, like it was peeling back my layers, exposing the boy who just wanted a family, a warm meal, someone to say, "You're enough." Every mock had been a scream for that, a warped cry for love. I thought I'd never get now. Facing him, I saw it. Hell wasn't just flames or chains. It was me, cut off from everything good by my own hands. My defiance had built this abyss, and I was drowning in it. But his presence, his sorrow, not anger, was a crack of light in the dark, a hint that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't too far gone. The terror peaked, the vision swirling, Dad's pleas, Mom's prayers, that bleeding cross. I couldn't breathe, couldn't escape the weight of what I'd done. But then, something pulled at me, a faint tug of light, like a lifeline thrown into the void. I wasn't ready for what came next, the moment that'd break me open and start putting me back together. The terror was suffocating, the visions relentless, Dad's chained pleas, Mom's sobs, the bleeding shards of that shattered cross swirling in the void. I was drowning in it, my every mock and sneer echoing back, each one a brick in the wall I'd built between me and anything good. Jesus stood there, his sorrowful eyes cutting through me, not with judgment, but with a grief that hurt worse. I'd spent years spitting on his name, smashing symbols of his love, thinking I was free. But here, in this abyss, I saw it clear. I'd caged myself, locked away from the warmth I'd craved since those hungry nights in that Kansas mobile home. The heat of regret burned my soul, not my skin, and I couldn't run from it anymore. I was a kid again, small and scared, facing the truth I'd dodged my whole life. Then it shifted, a faint pull, like a thread of light tugging me from the dark. The flames didn't vanish, but they dimmed, and the shadows' whispers softened. I felt my body again, heavy, like waking from a nightmare you can't shake. My eyes snapped open, and I was gasping in an ER, tubes snaking from my arms, monitors beeping like a countdown. The doctors said I'd flatlined for 7 minutes, clinically dead from that motel overdose. But I wasn't focused on their words. I was mumbling, voice hoarse, barely audible. "He's real. He's real." I didn't plan it. The words just spilled out, like they'd been carved into me in that void. The nurse looked spooked, said I'd been muttering about sorrowful eyes, even before I woke. You think that's crazy? I did too, until it happened to me. My hand was clenched tight, and when I opened it, there it was, that splinter from Grandma's crucifix, the one I'd spat on, the one I'd kept in my wallet next to that charred Bible page. It was warm, like it had been kissed by fire, smelling of chapel wood and something holy I couldn't name. No way that was coincidence, not after what I'd seen. In the ER, my body shivered, not from cold, but from an unexplained chill the doctors couldn't pin down. It was like my soul was still half caught in that abyss, still feeling the weight of his question. Why did you mock me? This wasn't just a brush with death. It was the nail in my story, the moment I couldn't deny anymore. Hell wasn't some cartoon pit. It was separation, the eternal absence of love, family, warmth, all the things I'd spent my life chasing and destroying. If you're listening and think this sounds like some drugged-up hallucination, I get it. I was you, scoffing at anything that smelled of faith. But those 7 minutes weren't a dream. They were a wake-up call, a mirror showing me the wreckage I'd made of my life. Every post I'd typed, every cross I'd broken, every laugh at Grandma's prayers, it wasn't freedom. It was me, building a prison of pain, cutting myself off from the God I'd mocked. And yet, those eyes, his eyes, didn't curse me. They mourned, like he saw the kid I'd been, the one praying at 6 for Dad to come home, the one dreaming of a hot meal with love around the table. That splinter in my hand, warm and heavy, was a tether pulling me back. I wasn't fixed, not yet, still broken, still scared, but something had cracked open inside me, a sliver of light in the dark I'd made. You ever hit a moment where you know you can't keep running? That was me, lying in that hospital bed, heart pounding, realizing I'd seen the truth I'd spent years denying. This was the end of my war, but not the end of my story. The real shift, the one that'd change everything, was starting right there, in that sterile room, with a splinter that burned with mercy I didn't deserve. Lying in that ER bed, tubes snaking from my arms, monitors beeping like a countdown, I was a mess, shaking, raw, like I'd been dragged back from the edge of something I couldn't unsee. Those 7 minutes of death, the visions of Jesus' sorrowful eyes, the burning regret of my mocks, they'd cracked me open. I wasn't the same guy who'd spat on Grandma's cross or smashed that chapel altar. I was still Jake, the kid from the Kansas mobile home, but something inside me was shifting, like a fault line giving way. For the first time in years, I didn't want to run. I wanted to face it, face him. I fell to my knees right there, hospital gown flapping, and whispered the only prayer I could muster. Jesus, if you're real, prove it one more time. Forgive me. It wasn't poetic, wasn't polished, just raw, like a kid begging for a second chance. My voice broke, tears hitting the cold floor, and I felt it, a weight lifting, not all at once, but enough to breathe. You ever hit rock bottom and feel like you don't deserve to climb out? That was me, right there in that sterile room. I'd mocked everything holy, laughed at the God my grandma swore by, burned pages of her Bible to feel something. But now, kneeling there, I was done fighting. I was tired of the pills, the booze, the endless chase for a high that never lasted. That splinter from Grandma's crucifix, still warm in my hand, smelled of chapel wood and mercy, like it was whispering back, "You're not too far gone." I clutched it, my knuckles white, and made a choice. No more drugs, cold turkey. Right then, I called my old friends, not the drifters who cheered my stunts, but the ones I'd hurt, the ones I'd led astray with my God's dead rants. "I'm sorry," I told them, voice shaking. "I was wrong. I led you down my path, and I'm sorry." Some hung up, some listened, but saying it out loud, it freed something in me. Healing wasn't instant, but it started there. For the first time in 8 years, I slept through the night. No nightmares, no waking up in a cold sweat, just peace. You know what that's like? When sleep feels like a gift? I'd forgotten what it was to rest, to not be haunted by the void I'd built. I started small, practical, joined a church rehab group, not the fire and brimstone kind, but one where broken people like me could talk, cry, rebuild. I'd sit in those meetings, listening to stories that sounded like mine, lost kids, angry adults, all searching for something real. I'd clutch that splinter during group, its sharp edge a reminder of where I'd been and where I was going. I wrote a letter to Dad, still in prison, my hand shaking as I scrawled, "I forgive you," like he's forgiving me, praying you find this too. I didn't send it, not yet, but writing it was like cutting chains off my chest. If you've ever surrendered, hit that moment where you let go of the fight, you know what I'm talking about. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just me, a broken guy, whispering to a God I'd mocked my whole life. I wasn't fixed, not by a long shot, but I was starting to see it. The warmth I'd craved as a kid, family dinners, hugs, someone calling my name, wasn't gone. It was waiting, and I had to choose it. That prayer in the hospital, those tears, they weren't weakness. They were the first step towards something I hadn't felt since I was 6. Praying for Dad to come home. Hope, not the fake kind I chased with pills, but the kind that sticks, that builds. The splinter in my hand, the sleep I finally got, it was proof I was turning, slowly, toward a light I'd spent years running from. But that turn, it was just the start, leading to a life I never thought I'd live. That hospital bed was my breaking point, but it wasn't the end. It was where I started to rebuild. After that raw prayer, that tear-soaked surrender, I wasn't magically fixed. I was still Jake, the kid from a nowhere Kansas mobile home, carrying scars from years of mocking and running. But something had shifted, like a crack letting light into a dark room. I made a choice to keep going, to chase that faint hope I'd felt instead of the highs that always crashed. I got clean, no more pills, no more whiskey, just me facing the mess I'd made. It wasn't pretty, but it was real. I started showing up to that church rehab group every week, sitting in a circle of folks as broken as me, sharing stories of pain and small wins. I'd clutch that splinter from Grandma's crucifix, its chapelwood scent grounding me, reminding me of the mercy I didn't deserve, but got anyway. Life started to change, not in big, flashy ways, but in the small stuff that hits deep. I woke up at 6 a.m. every day, reading Psalms from Mom's old Bible, the same one I'd slammed shut as a kid. "The Lord is my shepherd" didn't feel like a lie anymore. It felt like a promise I was starting to believe. I ditched the online Satanist forums, the ones where I'd posted God's dead to cheers from strangers. Instead, I used that same account to share a verse each week. Simple stuff, like Romans 5:8. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Didn't expect likes or followers, just did it to keep myself honest. You ever find something small that anchors you, keeps you from slipping back? For me, it was those dawn readings, the quiet before the world woke up. I started volunteering at a local diner, not Mom's old place, but close enough to feel like home. I'd serve hot meals to folks who reminded me of me, hungry, lost, looking for warmth. I'd hand them plates of pancakes and eggs, and they'd smile, call me by name. That's when it hit me. The family dinners I dreamed of as a kid, the ones I never had. I was building them now, one plate at a time. I got married a year later to a woman from church, someone who saw my scars and stayed. We had a kid, a little girl who calls me Dad, a word I hadn't heard since I was 6, praying for mine to come home. Every hug from her, every messy dinner we shared, was a gift I'd once thought impossible. You know that feeling when you realize you're living the life you used to pray for? That's what I was finding. I took that splinter from Grandma's cross and glued it to a new one, a small wooden piece I wear now. It's not just a symbol, it's proof of a mercy, of a God who didn't strike me down when I spat in his face. I went deeper, wrote that letter to Dad again, this time mailing it. "I forgive you, like he forgave me. I'm praying for you." He wrote back, first time in years, saying he was trying too. I started helping street kids, washing dishes for the homeless, even shining their shoes at a shelter. It wasn't charity. It was me giving what I'd always wanted, someone to see them, to care. If I, a guy who laughed at Jesus, who burned his words, could be pulled back, then maybe you can too. That's not me preaching. It's me believing because I lived it. Those nights I'd lain awake, hungry for more than food. They taught me to cherish the small stuff, hugs, a kid's laugh, a warm plate shared with someone. I wasn't just saved from that overdose. I was saved into a life where those things matter. If you've ever felt too far gone, like your mistakes define you, I'm telling you, I was there. I was the guy breaking crosses, mocking God to feel alive. But that splinter, that new cross, the sleep I finally got without nightmares, they're proof it's not too late. My life's different now, not because I'm good, but because He is. And that shift, it's leading to a truth bigger than me, one I'm still learning to share. Looking back, I see it clear now. Every mock, every smashed cross, every bitter laugh was me trying to fill a hole that started in that Kansas mobile home. I was a kid starving for warmth, for family, for someone to say, "Jake, you're enough." Instead, I ran from it, burned bridges, and spat on the one thing that could have saved me sooner. But here's the truth that still shakes me. God didn't strike me down. He didn't curse me for spitting on His cross or laughing at His pain. He met me in that abyss with eyes full of sorrow, not wrath, and pulled me back. Romans 5:8 says it better than I ever could. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's not just a verse, it's my life. I was the worst of sinners, a mocker who thought he'd won, but He died for me anyway. And if He could save me, broken, angry, lost, then He can save anyone. You ever wonder if you're too far gone? I did. Every day of my life, from those cold, hungry nights to the motel floor where my heart stopped. But those visions, that splinter burning warm in my hand, the peace of my first nightmare-free sleep, they're proof it's never too late. I mocked because I was broken, because I lacked the simple things, a hug, a hot meal, a family that stayed. Now, I cherish those things, my daughter's laugh, my wife's hand in mine, the Psalms I read at dawn. They're small, but they're everything, and they're what I was chasing all along, even when I thought I was running from God. This isn't about me being some saint now. I'm just Jake, a guy who hit rock bottom and found mercy waiting there. The guy who laughed while spitting on a cross, can be redeemed, then you're not out of reach either. You don't have to believe me right away. I didn't believe it myself until I saw those sorrowful eyes. But try this. Whisper one honest word to Him, like I did in that hospital bed. Jesus, show me. See what happens. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to say I've been where you are, doubting, hurting, lost, and I've found a way out, not because I'm good, but because He is. Why me? I asked that 1,000 times in that void, in the ER, in the quiet moments since. The answer's simple. His mercy doesn't pick and choose. It's endless, like a light that finds you even in the darkest pit. I live different now, hugging my kid, serving meals to the homeless, reading scriptures I once burned, because I know what it's like to have nothing. If you're listening, feeling that same ache I did, know this. The things you're chasing, love, warmth, a place to belong, they're waiting, not in pills or anger, but in a God who sees you, even when you spit in His face. That's the echo of mercy I'm still hearing, the light that keeps me going. So, here I am, Jake, the guy who mocked Jesus, spat on His cross, and laughed in the face of everything holy. Yet I'm still standing, changed by a mercy I didn't deserve. That abyss, those sorrowful eyes, that warm splinter in my hand, they flip my world upside down. But the story doesn't end here. You ever mock something bigger than you? Felt that pull to keep going or turn back? I've been there. Drop your story in the comments. I'll read everyone, and I'll pray for you, not to preach, but because I know that struggle. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs it, maybe someone wrestling with their own doubts. Try this. Whisper one word to Him, like I did. Jesus, Show me. See where it takes you. You're not alone in this. Not by a long shot. Those hugs, those meals, that light I found, they're out there for you too. Stick with me for the next chapter. God bless, and I'll see you in the comments.